Right, so this topic normally pisses me off because I had the chat about this so many times. First of all, if you run a plumbing business and you get cold leads, right? So your leads turn from somebody who was interested into cold ones. This is usually not because they just lost interest in either solving the problem or achieving the goal that they want with your service. This is because you snoozed on your lead. This is your fault, right? What we are going to do right now is we are going to use inversion, and we are not going to discuss how to get a warm lead out of cold one, but we're going to discuss how to never get a cold one for plumbing businesses. So let's start. Point number one. Point number one is no clear next step, right? So this is one of the most obvious problems that you can possibly pinpoint right away. So imagine the situation: prospect fills in a form and they don't get anything, or a bit higher echelon, when they get an email saying we'll call you, just wait, right? So in this case, this obviously creates a very negative feeling inside of the prospect that they aren't heard, and they may even think that you just didn't even see that they got in touch with you. So how you fix that is for manual follow-ups at the opt-in stage, you always give a deadline, or you move on to the virtual story right away. So let's imagine the situation: somebody opts in, so for example, for the installation or the replacement of a boiler, let's say, yeah, and if you don't have any automations and you always work with your leads manually, so your main objective is to get in touch with them as fast as possible, and if you're too busy to have a call with them right away, then you just give them a promise. Like, for example, I will call you at 10 a.m., right? Today, right? Or here is the link so you can book in your virtual service so we can take a look at your situation a bit more. Yeah? If you automate this, which I always recommend, especially for the opt-in stage, there are two ways how you can do this. First way is to over-deliver. What this means is that you give a bit more generic message to somebody. So it's saying like, thank you very much for opting in. We will call you soon, right? And then you call within first 3 to 5 minutes. This will absolutely guaranteed amaze people. This will be so big of a surprise, because for you to understand, normally plumbing, heat, and solar businesses, anything to do with this, people used to wait a lot, right? And if you're just fast and you actually just over deliver in terms of what you said, and over deliver the expectation that somebody had, then you already have a very good impression, and you already ramp up the warmth of the lead right away. Another way how you can do this is you can give a deadline and also give a promise with the deadline. So for example, you can say that we will get in touch in the next 3 hours. If we not fulfill the promise, you will get a discount, you will get a specific bonus just because of that. And this is something that somebody gets internally. So essentially you can automate this, saying that you will get this bonus if we don't do this. And essentially this way you first of all have the incentive yourself that you have to get in touch with them. So, which automatically contributes very positively to your conversion rate as a result of that, because the faster you get in touch, the better. At the same time, what you also do is that you also sort of reserve the uniqueness spot in somebody's mind, that because they didn't get the offer with anybody else, that if they don't fulfill the promise, they will get a bonus, right? So it's a win-win situation for both sides, and at the same time, people may even consider just waiting only for you because of this type of bonus. Yeah? This is point number one. Point number two, slow follow-up, right? So I see this so many times. I promise to you. There are literally businesses that reply within the next 2 to 3 days as soon as somebody fills out the form, for example, or tries to call or sends an initial email, something like this. And with plumbing, as you know, the ticketness of the job is way less compared to, let's say, to heat pumps, for example, or any commercial systems, anything to do with this, or even air conditioning. Boiler usually is cheaper than this, right? And the ticketness is 8 times less, which obviously means that people will get in touch with way more people because, and also people will move faster, right? So if you reply within 2 to 3 days, because you are crazy busy, most likely people will just move on with somebody else, right? So and obviously the bigger the ticketness of the lead, the more they are willing to wait just organically, right? So for example, if somebody is considering, let's say, like a 20K install, and they decide and they were like searching, browsing for companies, and they decided to get in touch with you, then their threshold for waiting for the reply will be higher. But with Plymouth, it's pretty low, especially with emergency services, obviously, right? So you have to be very sharp. So with emergency services or very like a call out service stuff, you have to get in touch either immediately. So essentially, if somebody gives an emergency call, you have to pick up right away, or within the next 3 minutes. 3 minutes, not max, right? You have to be very sharp with this. What I highly recommend doing if you have the model when somebody fills out the form, right? I highly recommend automating this. So sending automated text, email, WhatsApp connection. If possible, I would also consider doing the social media message. If, for example, if you were running, let's say, Meta ads or anything like this, also trying to get in touch with the actual account. On social media as well, and also send a message there, but it's very optional and you have to make sure that this is actually possible for you, right? So this way, you at this stage, you are able to be very quick by just simply automating the messages. And for further stages, like for example, if we say you send the welcome email, SMS, WhatsApp. After this, you have a back and forth with them, right? And let's say they book a survey, and now essentially you both waiting for the survey time to have a chat additionally. And if during this period of time, during this buffer of time, they ask another question, speed here matters a lot as well. So the faster you reply to any specific questions, any specific concerns, the better as well. So you have to maximize your time to replying to any messages generally from leads. You just have to minimize this, right? And also, by the way, because of the fact that you clicked on this video, I probably had to say this way earlier, but we will actually discuss a bonus for the guys that have the model that predominantly focuses installs, right? This is something that is not going to be shared in the text format of this post. It will only be shared in this video. So stick to the bonus. Now, point number 3 is zero nurturing. So it oftentimes happens that people have concerns before moving on with something, right? Even at these service stages, and normally service stage, when you have the actual survey, when you have a chat, either virtually or actually face to face. Normally, if you have a very good questioning, right, you will be able to find clear concerns or questions that people normally have before moving forward, right? And this is gold. If you just decide to ignore this and not address it on the spot, or not address it later, as the worst case scenario, it can just snowball to simply ruining the deal for you, right? So what you have to do is that if you have this information, if you have those questions that the client asked, and or the concerns that they had, you have to reinforce them, especially if you feel like they delay too much, right? Or if they already are cold, but you have noted that they had this concern, so on and so forth. What you can do is start a very simple follow-up sequence, right? So, for example, let's say somebody was concerned about the let's say some specific aspects of their property, and the new boiler installation that they were planning to do. Let's say something like this, right? And also, let's say they were concerned about the quotes and how they actually work, because like it's been like, let's say 20 years since they actually did something for their heating system. So what you can do in this case, you can start a simple follow-up sequence where you basically send a quick reminder about yourself, like essentially just wanted to get in touch again. I remember that you had this problem and this concern, so I just wanted to quickly address this right now, if this is still relevant, right? So let me know. Let me know if this is still relevant, and if you still are considering doing this, and that. So this is what you're doing essentially. You are providing value. You're actually answering the concern that they had before, clearly, right? and then you also asking the question and expecting the response from them, right? And then you can do this 4, 5, 6 times, depending on how many questions and objections they have during the, let's say the service stage, or let's say your either face-to-face meeting or a live call when you are presenting the quote to them, for example, right? So in this case, you can, for example, send the initial message addressing the quotes, how the quotes work. Then you can send, like, let's say, top 3 concerns that normally our clients have and how we completely solve them in our business, right? So FAQs essentially. Then after this, you follow up again, reinforcing the problem and the solution that you have or the goal that they want to achieve, and then you back this up with the testimonials. And then you, for example, do a seasonal reminder specifically for them, let's say, or just, for example, for people who they had the chat with, but they didn't move forward, right? So essentially, this way you have this nurturing process to be able to, first of all, separate yourself from the competition by simply addressing the concerns that they specifically said to you, and also at the same time, you are able to ramp up the words of the lead and then close it with like either a specific deal for them or any incentive-based thing, right? So this is extremely important. And fourth point is non-personal touch, right? So, and this is for every single stage of the sales process, right? So just generic, just checking in, it now feels cold. So before that, let's say 7, 8 years ago, this was something that felt okay, because you essentially people, it was something new for people to receive like constant follow-ups, just asking if everything is okay, any questions, so on and so forth, right? Now they're used to getting bombarded with those follow-ups, and so now you have to separate yourself by adding some additional features to the email, SMS, or WhatsApp message, right? So how normally I suggest doing this, especially with the manual follow-ups, or either with like manual phone calls or SMS or emails, is to reinforce what you have in the notes. For example, hey John, you mentioned water pressure issues. Still want us to sort that? For example, something like this. Yeah. So you basically reinforce the problem and what they wanted to understand or solve, right? And you ask this again. What I also love to do is I love to also include testimonials and case studies in every single email, let's say, that we send us as the follow-up, especially the later stages, like for example from the quote to deal stage. There is a transition and the follow-ups for those. Normally I love to add the testimonial to this one, to this as well, and essentially just general reinforcement of what you discussed and what were the concerns normally does the job perfectly, right? So these are the core 4 things on how to not get a single cold plumbing lead. Now, there is a bonus that we will discuss with you right now. It's specifically for the guys that install a lot, right? So for the guys that do a lot of installation and plumbing, and specifically we're going to isolate the quote send stage. Right, so essentially, when you send the quote, so when you did the survey, you send the quote, and on this state, and in this case, you give some time for the prospect to go through the quote. You don't you essentially you didn't hard close them on the call, let's say, on the survey, and they asked you to send the quote, so they can decide, they can think about this, all the bullshit, yeah. Now, here, when you send the quote, there is a transition, then you essentially want to close the deal, right? There is a really cool strategy that you can use to be able to identify or at least approximate where the prospect at, and also you are able to push the deal forward way more faster. So I will explain this to you right now. So as soon as you send the quote, what you can do. So let's say Tuesday, you send the quote sent. What you do right away is you give them a personal call, you call them, right? And you mention that you actually send the quote, you ask them to jump to the email to take a look if they actually received the quote, if they understand this, right? So they clearly can say, yes, I got the quote, thank you very much, I'm going to take a look at this, right? This is point number 1. Now, Wednesday, and then this is it. And if you obviously if they don't pick up, you double dial, meaning that you call 2 times. If they don't pick up to after the second dial, you send an SMS. You send an SMS and an email. Just checking if they received the call, right? So email and also the WhatsApp if possible. WhatsApp, right? So we have this. My perfect writing here. Yeah, so this is this was Tuesday, right? So essentially you just make sure that they receive the quote. After this Wednesday, on Wednesday, what you do is you follow up 3 times, right? And 3 times, how you do this 3 times? You have morning, you have noon, and you have evening, right? And how you do this is you follow up 3 times for each one, just simply by doing by using three communication channels. So, for example, in this case, what you can do is you can call again 2 times. You call 2 times. You then, if they don't pick up, you leave a voice note. After this, you send the SMS and an email, right? Asking, let's say, about the questions and reinforcing the concerns that they had, let's say, and showing the testimonial. Let's say something like this, yeah. You do the same stuff, noon and evening, right? And what's important here is how you leave the voice note, right? So the voice note, you don't really have to overcomplicate this. For voice notes, I would normally aim for like 20 to 30 seconds voice note. Essentially just reinforce, and again, the problem, the solution that they want, and then the fact that the quote is there, and a specific question: what questions do you have about the quote? I just wanted to understand what questions do you have about the quote, what concerns do you have about the quote, what concerns do you have about the project, so on and so forth. We talk about this, so this is what we can get people to think, right? And reply to you about the stuff, right? About what they're concerned about, because this way you'll be able to clearly identify the objections and work with that. So this is Wednesday, right? So you essentially in total you follow up 9 times, plus three voice notes if they're completely ghosting you. Same stuff for Thursday and for Friday. So you essentially you do this stuff for 3 days, right? And what happens by the end of day 3 if they ghosted you during this whole process? This basically means that they either moved on with somebody else, right? Or the objection built up so much that now they just can't move forward, right? Essentially. And in case 1, you just lose the lead, right? And this clearly indicates that there was something before that somebody had something more compelling, right? Or if somebody just ghosted you and the objection just built up so much, what you do is you just start a long-term nurture process, right? So how you do this is essentially after those Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you give 1 day break, and then on Sunday you try to get in touch again, right? After this you get in touch. So Sunday, then you get in touch Wednesday, so essentially then 3 days, then Saturday again 3 days, and then you extend to 5 days, 7 days, and then this is where you spread it. And then obviously the messages have to transition from being aggressive, quote unquote aggressive, to being more focused on the education, on a new positioning. So this way, your goal is essentially to get a clear response from somebody, either explaining why this happened that they didn't respond, or just saying no, they already have this problem solved. And if they say why this happened, then they still are interested in this, or at least the problem is still there. You can work with this, and you can essentially revamp them again. And how you do this is essentially by simply having the call with them and having the simple nurture process again, right? So this is basically how this works. If you do those 4 things plus this bonus, especially with the installation thing in plumbing, just try this. Try getting in touch during the first 3 days, just bombarding people morning, noon, and evening. Just do this stuff and see how this goes, right? Now, if you want to generate more exclusive and qualified clients for your plumbing business with a tailored approach and no shared leads, book a call. This is the most profitable solution and action you could potentially do for your business if you're struggling with getting more clients. So do that. Cheers.